MVQs are a very dated qualification. They should have gone years ago, but they've managed to survive probably because of the plethora of other qualifications and sort of misunderstandings. They were designed to be delivered in the industry and with a lot of flexibility that different parts of industry could utilise certain modules that fitted their business. They weren't really designed for delivery within colleges. Colleges have got away with it because they've got realistic working environments, so they can say that this is their restaurants, their college restaurants provide that resource for that type of learning, but realistically they're not truly fit for purpose, and there's too much option and too much flexibility in the qualifications in terms of it's possible for a student to get an MVQ qualification without doing the veg unit or the fish unit or the sauce unit. So how could a student be qualified and go into industry and they've never worked with fish, for example, or they haven't done certain bits of patisserie? So they're at fault in a way, but I think more widely the government and the changes in government and the constant change to qualifications hasn't helped either, and the industry don't really understand, I wouldn't say, qualifications and their true content. I'd say the three main qualification structures that are used in the UK would be the City and Guilds technical qualifications, which were designed with the T levels in mind. T levels are on the horizon from the government across a variety of industries and will be a real challenge to colleges in terms of their delivery. Then there's the MVQs, which are still sort of hanging on. And then there are the vocationally relevant qualifications, the VRQs, which are also out there. They're all slightly different in terms of the way that they're assessed. Some have examinations and practical tests. MVQs are competence-based. So, for example, I make a soup. It's been assessed as successful, it gets signed off, and then the journey continues until you finish that unit, the minimum amount of units, and you get your qualification. Whereas some of the others will have, official end-of-year practical tests that may be up to 5 hours or so, depending on the level, where the students will have to do a sort of a cross-section of the curriculum in terms of maybe some fish, some meat, some sauce, vegetarian dishes, a few desserts, baked products, that sort of thing, and also a knowledge test. So there's quite a difference between those assessment methods, because I think it's probably advantageous to the student who just has to do a competency-based thing, because if they get it wrong, they can revisit it the next day or the next week, get it right, it's signed off. If you've got a 5-hour practical test and you fail it, you fail it. If you sit a 2-hour written exam, you fail it, you fail it. You might get one more shot, but if you don't get through that, then you fail your qualification. So although the levels might be the same, level 2, level 3, etc., I think the assessment methods and the content of the qualifications isn't on a level playing field. And colleges, because of the pressures of Ofsted and success and retention and achievement, they will normally go for the one that is the least painful in terms of maximising success, retention, achievement. So that's quite often why qualifications such as the MVQ are still being utilised quite widely throughout the year. I'm in favour of a qualification that actually tests the skills and the knowledge. I understand that there is a risk to that in terms of if somebody fails an exam, they have to resit it. But I think if you're going to act and work as a chef, for example, you have to consider more than one thing at a time. It's very, very rare that you would go into a kitchen and your job for the day would be to make a soup or to make a dish. You would normally have to have your mind on a variety of different dishes. So I think in terms of testing the way that somebody can work in a kitchen and their kitchen organisation and structure and planning, then something that has a tested element that will put that into practice is a stronger option for me. It's just a case of how those skills can be filtered into the types of dishes that will be used in industry. So for example, poaching fish, quite often the bones from the fish will be turned into a stock, the stock will be turned into a veloute. Veloute is, the word might be used in industry, but the technique of a classical roux-based veloute is probably not very often used in higher end cuisine at least. So it's that understanding that the basis of classical French cuisine has changed, and when new types of cuisine have come in from Nouvelle cuisine beyond, and we're talking back to the 70s where things became a lot lighter and there was a lot more freedom to chefs, whereas if you put a Tornado Rossini on a menu, whether it's in Bournemouth or London or Newcastle or Glasgow, the components of the dish and the way that that dish was prepared and presented should be exactly the same. However, when chefs started to get more freedom and a bit more poetic license, then they would start to adapt these dishes away from the heaviness of some of the traditional sauces from French classical cuisine. And I think, in one sense, what's happened with Qualifications is that they need something to tie themselves to, and the simplest thing is to tie yourself to something that has a lot of rules, and French classical cuisine has a lot of rules. This is how it has to be done, whereas contemporary cuisine doesn't really have those rules. You can write a menu, you can describe it however you want, and nobody's really going to criticise that, because the creativity is with the chef, and how they describe that dish is down to them. So there is this transition, I feel, between what's happening classically and what's happening to Qualifications and what's happening in industry, and that has widened, and we need to get it back together.